So this is a brief demonstration of automatic feature downloads to on-hook CPE. So I have here a Nortel 350, and I also have a Nortel Vista 390, which is a newer model of essentially the same phone. It looks very similar, but it's a little bit smaller, and the screen is also a little bit nicer. You can see that it looks a little bit clearer compared to a screen like this. And actually acquired this phone basically new old stock, and so it came with some of the original packaging and labels. So this was the label that was actually on the screen. I peeled it off and put it on the box for the power adapter. But it instructs you when you unbox your telephone to, once you connect it up, to call this toll-free number that will then program your phone with the right scripts. And so based on whatever features were assigned on your line, the central office could then download the appropriate scripts to your phone so that it would work with the features that were assigned to you. And you can actually still call that number. And CenturyLink now still owns the number.
Thank you for calling. On January 7th, 2012, we eliminated the software program for the CenturyLink Home and Business Receptionist telephones. This change was due to the discontinuation of the software program and equipment by the manufacturer. As a result, reprogramming the telephone to enable the specialized forwarding, hold, and join features is no longer available. Although these specialized features on the phone will no longer work, the loss of programming does not impact the basic functionality of the receptionist telephone, and it will continue to support caller ID and call waiting ID. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. To evaluate other services to enhance your communication portfolio, please call your business office at the telephone number located on your bill. To repeat the announcement, press 1.
So as you heard there, US West, which is now CenturyLink, discontinued their programming service for these phones about 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago really. But not all hope is lost. Obviously I'm able to do the exact same thing they were doing here with just a couple phones and a 15-year-old computer. So you don't really need a lot to do this kind of stuff. But whatever they were using, I guess at the time they were no longer able to keep using it. And so I just thought it was cool that they still have that number up, so that if you buy one of these phones now and try to call that, you at least hear that. But you can set up your own service with things like Asterisk to do the same thing, so you can still program your phones with the right scripts. The features that you heard there talking about, hold, conference, or whatever, that's obviously alluding to Call Waiting Deluxe, which I've covered in previous videos, where in the resident script that is in the phone, so that the main script essentially, when it detects call waiting caller ID, it will automatically on these buttons have conference, hold, join, drop, and all those options for that. And so you can then use these buttons. Of course, you can also just manually flash and use the DTMF code, so it's not like you can't use the feature. The whole point of this is that it's an easy way to visually do stuff without needing to hook flash and enter DTMF codes and all that manually. Anyways, for the main part of the video, I'm demonstrating on-hook, or rather automatic feature downloads. And the way that it works at a high level very quickly is that the equipment at the central office. Now typically it was something separate that would cut through using the central office. It wasn't actually the CO switch that was doing this. But obviously, since you need to talk to the phone while it's on hook, while it's idle, you need a path through the central office. So it's not like you have a call up. But the central office will furnish such a path, and then whatever the ADSI server is basically will send it a call setup MDMF message, and it just contains one parameter for the ADSI on-hook download initiation with the CPE ID of the phone. And so that's an important thing, is if you don't know the CPE ID of the phone, then you can't actually do this. And every phone, in theory, has a unique CPE ID. And so that needs to be known in advance, so that's kind of what the Get CPE ID application could be used for. So I have here the server that this is connected to, and I've added the ability to do on-hook automatic feature downloads to Asterisk. And so I can do it from the CLI. You can also do it using AMI. But if I run this, you'll see that I get a warning saying that no CPE ID was provided. And so I made a slight change so that if you call the Get CPE ID application, it will actually store, if it's a DOTI channel, it will store the CPE ID for later use, which the documentation sort of alludes to being possible, but that functionality was never added, so I've gone ahead and added it. So if we call the Get CPE ID application, and let me put this in monitor mode here, and go ahead and do that. Alright, so it's done now. I can press pound to exit. And I'll hang up. Alright, and now I'll turn the speaker on here. And now, at this point, I should be able to go ahead and actually do the download of the script. Now, if I go to services, you'll see that I currently have no resident scripts loaded into the CPE. So, I've got all of that available. And if I go back, and I now try this. Now, as soon as I press enter, it will basically queue the download. And so it will then send the call setup message, which you will hear on the test set here. And then the CPE, once it gets its CPE ID, it will go off hook. So the actual programming will still be off hook. But they'll basically do the download at that point, and then the CPE, so this phone here, will automatically hang up again. So it's entirely unattended. I don't even need to touch the telephone for this download to occur. It's all controlled by the switch and the server. So let's go ahead and give this a try. Alright, so as you can see, that was completely unattended. And so this is exactly how companies like Bell Canada would, every night program your phone with advertising, if you remember that, so that you would, periodically see new things appear on the screen, is that when your phone is idle, it will do this. Now, something that is not actually in the specification, but I sort of figured out, is that this will only work if the phone has been idle for 45 seconds, it seems. So if I were to go, if I were to go off hook there and then try this again, you'll see that it doesn't actually work. And that is because the CPE will ignore any attempts to initiate an on-hook download if the phone has not been idle for at least 45 seconds. And if you think about that, that makes sense, because during that time, it's probably likely that you're going to make another call. And the longer you wait after that, probably the less likely it will become. So that's just to avoid the conflict. The protocol does state that if the phone is downloading something, and you'll see it said server downloading, so there is some kind of visual indication, but obviously it would be bad if, say, there was an emergency, you needed to make a phone call, and the phone was tied up doing that. So there's a couple of things. First of all, the phone will only allow 2 minutes for this kind of automatic feature download programming. After 2 minutes, doesn't care if the script is done, it will hang up. And two, if you are to manually go off hook at any time while it's doing a download, then the CP will abort the download. I think it will send an A or something, or I think it's a star actually. It will hang up, and then it will re-originate to allow you to get dial tone, make whatever call you need to make. And so there's some safeguards, you know, here to make sure that it can be done. Now, obviously, this only works if you have, if basically your phone is physically connected to your telephone system. You can't do this with an ATA because those types of things just don't support this. But if you're using Chandati and Asterisk, this is certainly something that can be done. Alright, so I've now swapped out some of the wiring here. So I've still got this on channel 7, but I've got it wired up to the lineman's test set up here. Well, the test set is over here, but it's wired up over here. And if we were to try to do an automatic download, so I've already called the CPE test on here. So if I go ahead and try to do programming on channel 7, so what happened there? So we see that it was able to actually force the CPE to go off hook, and it did. It sent the acknowledgement for the CAS, and then a D1, and then an A. And so the CPE rejected the programming attempt. And that is because you'll notice that I've actually not downloaded any scripts to this phone yet. In fact, this is the first time I'm trying to do any of that, is right now. And I believe this is part of the security of doing these automatic feature downloads, is that CPE will reject attempts to initiate downloads for any scripts that they've not actually downloaded before. So if we go ahead now and actually try to download the script ourselves, okay, and it's prompting to accept the download, which I'll do. Alright. And I'll hang up. Sorry for the feedback. And so now at this point, we have the script in the resident memory here. And so you can select the script, and actually some of the functions here you'll see. But the important thing is that this script is now known to this telephone. So in future downloads, it will basically compare the script identifier, I think it's called an FDN or something like that. And if it matches and the security code matches, then it will accept an automatic feature download for that script. So the server can't just send any script it wants to the phone. And this is why the customer always has to, the first time, do something like call one of these numbers. The telephone company can't just program your phone without you actually explicitly taking some knowledge, taking some initiative to do that, which is probably a good thing. That honestly makes a lot of sense. But once you have downloaded somebody's script, then assuming that they have some kind of arrangement with the phone company to let them do so, or they are the phone company and can do so, then they can update that script whenever they want using this capability. So now if we were to go ahead and give this another shot, And there we go. Now we have successfully done an automatic feature download of that script to the CPE. And I found there I actually had to go off hook once on the phone after that download before it actually accepted the download again. And so that's, it didn't work the first time. But, so that's the security protocol in action. Once you've explicitly, you yourself initiated the attempt to download that script, then in the future that script can automatically update.